Welcome back to my podcast. Hi, everybody. This is a new episode, and I am so happy that you're back and you're still tuned. I don't even know. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the books that you should read if you want to ruin your mental health. And I know what you're probably thinking, girl. Why would we ever care about this stuff? But here's my take. You can take this either as something that I shouldn't ever read because it's going to ruin my mental health, or if you're already depressed and like miserable, then you can just like go into it. I would go into it. It's like, if you feel something, feel it to the fullest. Experience it. Like, stop pretending like you don't feel like shit. You do. And it's okay. Like, at some point it's gonna pass. Watch my previous video where I talk about what cured my depression. Maybe it's gonna help you. Anyway, today I am so happy because I just did my nails. Guys, like, what the fuck? Like, if you're not watching on YouTube right now, you are missing out on the perfection that my nails are. And like, this is just one side. Okay, there's no focus, but it doesn't matter. And then this one. Like, what? And also, like, if you want to be able to enjoy your nails or the simple things like this, then you should not read these books, because then you will not be able to. And I spent like 5 years reading a lot of depressive books. Like, I've analyzed the things that I've read, and like, bro, 99% of them are fucking depressing. But either way, also, I have an ice Oreo latte, and so it's like, I'm literally living my best life right now. Like, this pink nails and this milkshake that looks like a chocolate milkshake, but it's actually also a coffee. Like, I might as well just be happy for the rest of my life because of this shit. Anyway, I've written down all the books here on a piece of paper in my notebook, and we can talk about them. They're in no particular order, so don't ask me if there is any meaning to the order. No, most of them are actually fiction books, but there are a couple of, fiction, philosophy, stuff like this. So I will be honest, I've read most of these books a long time ago, so I don't remember much, but it doesn't matter, because I'm just going to tell you the real reasons of why you should not read them, or maybe you should if you're depressed. Like, I feel like here's this thing. I feel like most of the things we read actually just, they just portray what kind of internal state we have at the moment. And so many things are trending. Like, I don't know how people read Dostoevsky, for example, when they are not going through an existential crisis. Like, I don't understand how the hell are we supposed to do this in like Russian schools, and just like, oh, read this book. Like, this literally every single book from Russian classical literature is literally written to ruin your mental health. Like, I'm just gonna tell you right now, I don't know how I'm still able to be alive after everything I've read while I was a kid. And like, other kids are smart, right? They don't read books. They don't care about the grades in the literature class. They just like say fuck you, and they don't ever show up. And I'm like, I need to be a good student. I'm gonna read this Dostoevsky book, and then it's gonna ruin my mental health. Like, what's up with that? Anyway, we might as well just start with Dostoevsky, because I have one book that is, I've read a lot of Dostoevsky's books, not because of my fucking will, but this one I read because I wanted to. And I will be honest, it's one of the most depressing books I've ever read. And if you feel depressed and awful, you might as well just read it. It's called Notes from the Underground, and it's really short, so you don't have to go through the Crime and Punishment that is fucking what? It's almost like the War and Peace by Tolstoy. No, you don't need to go through that. You can just like read the Notes from the Underground, and you already have your dose of depression and existential crisis, all that at once. So this book is about a guy who is so miserable, and he is overthinking and has anxiety, and he literally thinks that everybody hates him all the time, and whenever he is in any room, he thinks that everybody thinks about him and like puts him down, but like in reality, nobody cares about him. Nobody cares. He gets invited to this party of his old classmates, and he goes there, and nobody gives a fuck about him. Nobody notices him. And at some point he becomes crazy, and I don't remember what, like, he does something crazy. And then at the end of the book, okay, I'm not going to spoil you, because like maybe you're going to actually go and read these books, but I will tell you, this book, it's really not about the plot or what it is, because there's no plot. Like, almost nothing is happening there. But the way it is written, it's written in this like internal monologue, consciousness spilled out way, which is actually like a form of literature writing, which is one of my favorite ones back in the days. Like, I don't read books, like, but it was my favorite one. And it talks about the fact that how this thinking, the way that the person was thinking and the way his mind was working manifested into these awful things in his reality. And like, I don't understand how people, I guess you all have great mental health when you read these books and you don't fall into the same cycles and you don't become as crazy as the characters in the books. But like, when I was reading these things, I was like, bro, that's about me. I was going down bad. I was not doing well. So if you feel like, but you know what? One thing, it can make you feel less alone because you read this and you're like, well, at least I'm not the only crazy person in the world, because the Dostoevsky wrote a book about this. But to be honest, like, it just made me more depressed. So you just consider. The next book I have here, which is more mainstream, is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. And if you are a Pinterest girly boy, whatever, if you've been on social media, you probably saw that book because it was kind of trending. And that book, let me tell you what is happening in that book. It's one of the most depressing books I've ever read, but also very beautiful, but it's extremely depressive and it's crazy. So if you don't know, the plot of the book is that the girl she has a terrible relationship with everyone in her life, including her parents, including her past lovers, including her friends. She basically doesn't really have anyone, and she spends all of her time in like her apartment. And at some point, she becomes so unassociated with reality that she thinks that the best way to just live through life is maybe take an year of like not doing anything. And she does that she has a therapist that she goes to, and she basically says that she has insomnia, and she's like, please, like, she always says like, this is not enough. Although she does not have insomnia, she just takes these pills to sleep all the time, and she like falls asleep and sleeps for like months, and then she wakes up, and then she does the minimum things of like waking up, going to the store that is close to her house, buying like the simplest food, whatever, eats it, and then goes to sleep. This book is absurd because it is so crazy in describing the mental state and the kind of everyday life experience of how it feels to be in the most like low state. It's not the most low state because she still exists, and like at the end of the book, she really just finishes like her year of rest and relaxation. She does not die. But it is crazy to read a book about basically nothing. The girl just sleeps in her room the entire time, but yet obviously we have explanations of like things happening to her in the past and all of that along the lines. And I just think that a lot of people who are in that state, not in the state of year of rest and relaxation, but really just, you know, when you're so depressed, you cannot stand up from your bed and just like go and do these simple basic things of like brushing your teeth. This is very similar to the kind of internal consciousness that you have in that state when you don't even have the capacity to bring yourself to believe into something or do something, because it's really just a matter of, I wake up, I do the things I need to do, and I go to sleep again. But I will be honest, this book disturbed me majorly. As an artist, I have a tendency to create something that is based on something that I consume. So either videos, music, films, books, all of that. When I read something or consume something in terms of media, I very much think it through, and I also usually get inspired to create something similar. And when I read that book, I was like, I'm gonna write the same memoirs but about my life. Anyway, I never tried to sleep for a year using the pills for insomnia, but I'll be honest, like, there were moments where she was describing certain feelings or certain the way you look at the world at that state that I resonated with back in the days, and it was terrifying. Anyway, let's go on. Next book I have on the list is Dark Universe by David Galouye. So now we're gonna get a little bit more niche, because I have like very popular books here and not very popular. This book is like, I don't think anybody knows about it. It's a sci-fi book, and if you don't like sci-fi, it's not gonna work for you. But this is, I don't even remember much. By the way, guys, like, all these books I read like 3-4 years ago. I don't remember a lot of the plot. I just said it on the spot. I want to make this video, but anyway, what I remember from that book is that it's basically an apocalyptic future where all of us live underground and there's no light whatsoever, so everything is just dark, because like if there is no light, we wouldn't be able to see, because the only reason why we see is because light reflects on our eyes, from things to our eyes, and that's why we see. There has to be some light for us to see. That is the reason why you can see something. I'm just telling you the fun fact. And the whole idea, listen, I'm going to spoil this right now because it's important for the book, but if you want to read, skip like a couple of minutes. But the point is that at the end of the book, you think the main character, he lives underground, right? And there's this girl that he kind of falls in love with, and eventually they decide together to like get out of that place and maybe get to the top of the earth, and maybe there is some light. And they get there, and as far as I remember, there's like nothing. Like, it's basically depressing. Like, at the end there is really nothing. There is no way out. And whenever I read that in the book, I'm every single time I'm like, what was the point? What was the point? What was the fucking point? Like, I get it. I guess we all should just fucking die. Anyway, I'm sorry about that one. Next book. I'm just telling you the books you should read. Because somehow I found the most depressing books on the planet Earth. The next book is Sylvia Plath's Bell Jar. So this one is very popular and a lot of people read it, and it's not mainly about being depressed, because it's about this woman going through psychosis at some point, and also about feminism. But fun fact, this book is basically in major ways based on the autobiography of Sylvia Plath herself, and the way it's written is extremely disturbing and extremely descriptive of what it feels like to slowly lose your mind. And everybody keeps telling you that you're losing your mind, but you actually cannot comprehend it, because you think that you are being true to yourself. You think that this is the only way to exist, but then also things happen in your life externally that you cannot really explain, that they would in some way, imagine you are slowly losing your mind and you're slowly deranging, and then also something happens that literally like gets you into a full obliteration of your mental health. Like, that is what this book feels like. And right now it's like, warning, by the way, if you didn't know, at the end of the book ends where the main character, she ends up in a mental hospital again, and we don't know what's happening with her afterwards. But actually, since it's basically built on her life, if you didn't know, Sylvia Plath killed herself at the end of her life, and not very much later after writing that book. And I just think that is really not what I expected when I was reading that book, because I genuinely thought there may be a good ending to this thing, but only after reading the whole piece I realized how this book is literally about slowly losing your brain and slowly and like the thing is, like, she is losing her faith in life and her hope, not because of herself, not because like she did something, but because so many things happen to her that show her that there is no point in keep believing, and she ends up in situations that make her completely convinced that to lose hope is the only solution, really. It's terrifying, and I feel like if you want to understand what it feels like to slowly lose your brain and slowly become completely disillusioned, is you can read this book. And this book is only in the second from the second reading is for me about feminism, really, even though men play a big role in that book, and dramatic role, let me tell you. The next book I have is a philosophy book, which also, like, if you want to get depressed, read philosophy, bro. all of them philosophy books, like, they're gonna fucking put you in a spiral. Anyway, so this book is very this one is again a niche book. It's called Human Predicament by David Benatar. And this book is basically about antinatalism. So if you don't know what antinatalism is, it's a philosophy that life is not worth living and that death is better than life. And then there is more, I mean, there are different explanations, but the simplest explanation would be that life has more pain in it than death. So that's why death is better if we by default consider that pain is not a good thing. That is actually crazy. That philosophy exists, and like a lot of people, like the fact that like, oh, it's just philosophy, we're gonna we analyze life, what like, this is crazy. I think here's my point. I think every single person that writes philosophy books about anything that is depressive, really, like, it is depressive, you are just depressed. Like, and I'm gonna make a huge point about this. When, you know, Nietzsche, like, all of these, like, oh my god, guys, you were just fucking depressed. Like, oh my god. Okay, let's talk about Nietzsche. So I've read in my life 3 books by Nietzsche. Haven't finished 2 of them because I ran out of I got out of my depression. But I know a lot of things about Nietzsche, and I'm going to tell you one book that is the most depressive so far, but it's also the most depressive book is by Nietzsche is Thus Spoke Zarathustra. But this is like when you were in your peak depression mode. Like, if you are in peak depression, if like, you will only understand Thus Spoke Zarathustra if you're completely depressed, because if you read it, you're like, what is that? But really, you know what Thus Spoke Zarathustra is? Me literally, like, I have knowledge, but I think I have knowledge. It's just a book on Nietzsche he had a really complex mind, like, and he had a lot of thoughts. What he had a skill in is taking his depressive feelings and turning them into a fable, a story, a fairy tale. And then you have to unpuzzle it and make it make sense. But it's like seriously, guys, I was reading these things, like, in That Spoke Zarathustra, he basically describes the world we live in, and like what is the way to like get out of the matrix in modern terms, because he says everybody is sheep, and you, the reader, you're the only one who can maybe open your eyes and see that, stop following the crowd and all of that. But like, bro, in my opinion, Nietzsche is just depressed egoist. Like, I'm sorry, and like, I can say this with the open heart space, and like, I'm not trying to offend anyone who loves Nietzsche. Like, it's okay, you do you. But like, I was like this, so I'm just telling you. Yeah, but another book you can read is Beyond Good and Evil, which, you know what, there's a lot of interesting concepts in this, and it's talking about moral ethics, and it's about, different moral dilemmas. I used to be obsessed with those. But I will tell you this one thing: at the end of the day, when you're in a good mental health state, you're gonna read these books, you're gonna feel like you don't understand anything, and that is only because all of that is just a work of a complex, mentally ill mind, which, I mean, should be completely invalidated because it is the work of this. I don't think so, but I believe that I believe that happiness is more valuable than complexity of your art. So, and I mean, this is a complicated take because some people are going to completely disagree, but this is my personal belief. Anyway, I have 2 books left, and I've only recorded 20 minutes, so I might talk about them a little bit more. The next book I have is Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. Again, this pretty popular classics book. It's popular in a lot of places, and it was even popularized, I think, in like aesthetic of books reading communities. But girls, it's so fucking like, it's so deranged and depressive. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm the only person who's like too sensitive, and I've been told this many times, but when I was reading it, I was going through a fucking spiral. Bro, what is happening in that book? Because that book, besides being extremely depressive, it also has a bad ending. Which, okay, people may argue like whether it's a bad ending, but anyway, it is about a very poor family very disruptive family dynamic, and a love story that is not a love story. It's a fucking toxic like obsession or something. And the fact that some people actually dramatize it and like analyze it as like a love story, I'm like, I actually can't. Like, this is, if you want to know what a crazy obsession looks like, read Wuthering Heights, because it's not love. You guys, you don't even know what love is at this point. Like, I need to teach you all. Like, love should make you happy, not fucking miserable, like the entirety of that book. Like, oh my god. Anyway, so that book, I don't even know where to start, but it's about this. I think I don't want to really talk about the book, because if you want to read the book, read the book. But really, what's important here is that it was written by Emily Bronte, which is, you know, there are Bronte sisters. There's also another very popular book written by a Bronte sister, which is Jane Eyre, and also like crazy book, but a little bit more happy. But again, like, it's boring though. So, what I want to tell is that if you don't know the history of the sisters, first of all, they were born and existed in very crazy times. And whenever I read old books, and by old books, I mean like classical literature, you know, written in the 1800s, 1900s, I always think about the fact that how much our lives as people have universally improved, because living like that was a norm. Living in a village surrounded by having no, you know, like human sort of like utilities that we have right now, all of us. Okay, if you are from a country where you have a phone and you have internet and you can watch this, then there's a really high chance that you probably have shower and you can eat food every day and not starve, and you have great clothes, and you like, the level of life has increased so much, like the average level of life. And like, I'm not going to disregard the fact that there are still people living in harsh, awful conditions, but overall, the number of people who live in like an basics, which we now consider basics, has improved dramatically. And if you think about it, it's not, because like, just think about what a toll it would take on mental health of people to just live in that place. And like, obviously they had nothing to compare their lives to, because that's what they were existing in the entire time. But like, at the same time, like, and like, also the level of what is okay and what is not okay in terms of human relationships, in terms of just being respectful and kind towards each other, I think like this norm has completely changed. And I don't know, I feel like reading classic literature can really show you how it's like the human psyche hasn't changed. The society has changed a lot and built the life that we have right now, that is so much, like, in ways better for a human psyche, but also in some ways is more makes it complicated and makes it contradictory. So I don't know, like, overall I think we live in a better world, so that is good. But also, like, I don't know how we can, like, how people in general, we can read about past and be okay with the fact that they used to live in complete, like, different reality. In fact, like, we read those books as if, oh well, the similar story could have happened nowadays. No, it couldn't have. It is crazy, and it wouldn't have ever been happening if they lived in a different reality, which, for example, like ours. Anyway, the last book I have here, which is probably one of the most depressing ones from the list. Well, I mean, they're all depressing, but anyway, it is also a sci-fi book, but it's not a typical sci-fi. It's very unique. So I know, maybe even if you don't like sci-fi, you might like it. It's called Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. And it's very popular sci-fi writer, but I used to be obsessed with sci-fi books, but I read only this one book by him, and I'm like, I am reading anything fucking else. Because I know that I will kill myself after another book. Like, it's crazy. It is crazy. I cannot even explain to you what this book is about because there is no plot. And I'm not kidding. There is no plot. Like, the point of that book, the way he describes it is that in literature, there's always a plot, right? The beginning, some sort of like something is happening, and there's a culmination, and then there's the end, and like kind of like conclusions. In that book, there's nothing like this because he says that life is, it's like this. It goes up and down, and then it goes to the left or the right, and then you can't really make a story out of your life because reality is not a book. Reality is reality. And he tried to write a book that would be as similar to reality as possible. But in my opinion, he just wrote a fucking crazy book. But a lot of people love that book. So like when I say crazy, like all these things, like I'm not saying these are bad books. Like I've read them all. Okay, I've watched videos about them. I know things about them. I thought about them. But it's like I sometimes read books not because I think they're good or bad. I think I used to read books to just like get perspective on life, or because I was depressed. I don't know. But here's the thing. This book, I'm not even going to try to describe to you because there are in this book there's like boys at war and like aliens on different planets, and there are different story timelines happening at the same time, but like on different planets and whatever. Like you can't even comprehend what is happening there. But I'll give you one episode from the book that I remember that really stuck with me, because for me this is like how it feels to be depressed, I think. And like I don't think a lot of people read that book and they're like, oh, this is what depression feels like. But for me, that is how it feels. It feels like the most literal miserable state you could ever be in. Which, by the way, I was never diagnosed with any like mental health issues or depression. Maybe I should have been to the therapist or something, but I wasn't. So when I say I was depressed, I'm not saying this is like clinically. I'm saying that's how I felt. But like, don't come at me because I'm not giving you any professional advice right now. Like, no, that's just my personal little experience and opinion. So, there is a moment in the book where the main character, a guy, finds himself in a room with a woman who's like, as far as I remember, naked. And the room is like a cage in a zoo. And he looks outside, and outside there are like aliens. And so basically for these aliens, those humans are like animals for us in a zoo. Because this is happening like on a different planet where the species is extremely developed, and they are, compared to us humans, they're so much smarter and developed, and for them to look at us, it's like, we look at animals and be like, oh, let's study them. And they study us in the natural habitat. And the most disturbing thing is that eventually, like, as far as I remember, they live in that cage with that woman, and eventually, like, they reproduce in that cage while all these aliens look at them. And I'm just like, the way this book is written made me think of the way you feel when you think that everybody is judging you. And I think this is like a very good description of what it feels like to be in the lowest mental health state, because even though you know on the rational level that nobody really cares about you in that sense, your brain convinces you that everybody judges you all the time and everybody thinks about you, and of course bad things. Anyway, that is the end of my list. I have nothing else left here. To finish this on a cute note, let me show you maybe a little drawing that I did that is not as depressive. Do you want to see it? Do you want to rate my art abilities? I know, looks like a 5-year-old, but it doesn't matter. I love it. Anyway, guys, that was a really depressive episode. Well, if you wanna know what books you should read to not be depressed, you can write this in the comments, and maybe we'll make a video like this or an episode like this. But anyway, it was so nice talking to you today. I just hope you have a great day, and if not, then maybe you should stop reading depressive books, because like really they just make you depressed. They really do. I really do. No, thank you so much for watching or listening, and I hope you have a great day, week, month, or the whole life, preferably. And please hit, subscribe. Like, bro, hit the like button. Like, what are you waiting for? Anyway, bye.